He banned me from my first grandchild's birth and sent me the $130,000 bill. He said my presence was toxic. He thought the old machinist was just a worn-out checkbook. He was about to find out I don't just build machine parts. I dismantle lifestyles. The smell of machine oil usually calmed my nerves. It was the scent of my life. 40 years spent building things with my own 2 hands. I'm Thomas. I own a small manufacturing workshop. It's honest work. It built the home I shared with Margaret. It paid for my kids, Michael and Sarah, to go to college. I wiped the grease from my hands, locking up the shop. The exhaustion was a heavy blanket settling deep into my bones, but it was worth it. My first grandchild was coming. My boy Michael was about to be a father. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this crazy world. The hum of the tires on the asphalt was the only sound in my truck. 15 long hours straight. I was running on gas station coffee and pure uncut adrenaline. My lower back screamed. My eyes felt like sandpaper. I didn't care. I was driving towards hope, driving towards a new beginning, or so I thought. I glanced at the passenger seat. A giant stuffed giraffe was buckled in. Ridiculously expensive. It cost more than a week's groceries, but it was soft. I imagined tiny hands squeezing it tight. I smiled. I was ready to be a grandfather. I was ready for the light to come back into our lives. Margaret would have loved this. My wife. She dreamed of being a grandmother. When she passed 3 years ago, the light in our family went out. I tried my best to keep the flame alive, especially for Michael. He took her death the hardest. Maybe that's why I spoiled him. Maybe that's why I never said no. Guilt is a powerful motivator. Michael had moved across the country soon after the funeral. A new marketing job, a new wife, Lisa, a new life. A life I didn't recognize. Lisa liked things expensive, modern, complicated. They had a huge city apartment, a fancy European car that was always breaking down. Vacations I couldn't even pronounce. I worried. Were they living beyond their means? Michael always brushed it off. We're doing great, Dad, don't worry. But the calls kept coming. The quiet requests for help. Dad, just a little help with the down payment. Dad, the car needs an unexpected repair. Dad, Lisa really needs this. I gave it. Always. That's what fathers do, right? You support your children. You sacrifice. You give until it hurts, and then you give some more. I thought I was investing in his happiness. I didn't realize I was funding my own betrayal. The GPS finally announced, "You have arrived." I pulled into the parking lot. The Serenity Birth Center. It didn't look like a hospital. It looked like a 5-star hotel, a luxury spa where people went to relax, not push out a baby. Marble floors, fountains trickling water in the lobby. Soft, weird music playing. This was Lisa's idea, of course. She insisted on the best. The absolute best. And the best always costs the most. I worried about the cost. It seemed excessive, unnecessary. But Michael was so excited. I want everything perfect for Lisa and the baby, Dad. So I helped. I always helped. I remembered months ago. Michael came home for a quick visit. He mentioned some paperwork. It seemed so innocent at the time. A terrible mistake disguised as a favor. We were sitting at my kitchen table, the same table where he did his homework, the same table where Margaret used to bake her famous apple pie. It's just a formality, Dad, he had said, pushing the forms towards me. He wouldn't look me in the eye. He kept fidgeting with his expensive watch. A watch I bought him for his graduation. That should have been the first red flag. What is it? I asked, wiping flour off my hands. I was baking that day, trying to feel close to Margaret. An insurance backup, he said quickly. Too quickly, just in case. The center requires a secondary guarantee. You won't have to pay a dime. Our insurance is solid. I was so caught up in the excitement. A baby, a new life, a piece of Margaret coming back into the world. I barely read the papers. I just signed where he pointed. Grantor, a simple word, a deadly trap. I grabbed the giraffe and walked into the lobby. The air smelled like lavender and expensive perfume, overwhelming, suffocating. I felt immediately out of place. My worn jeans, my work boots tracking dirt on the pristine floor, the calluses on my hands. I looked around, expecting Michael to be pacing. Nervous, excited. Instead, I saw him sitting in a plush velvet armchair, staring at his phone, completely relaxed. He looked up as the automatic doors slid shut behind me. His expression wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was shock, followed quickly by something else, something cold, something anxious. The look you give an intruder, not a father. Michael, I said. My voice was thick with emotion, 15 hours of emotion. I started walking towards him, grinning like an idiot. I made it, son. How is she? Is the baby here? Michael stood up quickly, but he didn't move towards me. He stayed behind the armchair, using it as a barrier. My grin faded. The lobby suddenly felt very cold. Why was he looking at me like that? He smoothed down his sweater. Cashmere. Expensive. A sweater I knew he couldn't afford on his salary. Dad, he said. His voice was tight, strained. What are you doing here? The question hit me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut. I stopped walking. The giraffe suddenly felt heavy in my arms. Stupid. What do you mean? I stammered. The baby? I came for the birth. I told you I was driving down. We talked last week. He winced. He actually winced, as if my presence caused him pain. He glanced nervously towards the elevators. I know you said that, Dad, but things have changed. Changed how? Is everything okay? Is the baby okay? Look, this is complicated, he whispered, stepping closer, but still keeping his distance. His eyes darted around the lobby, worried someone might see us together, worried I might embarrass him. Lisa is very stressed. The labor is taking much longer than expected. He paused, and her mother is here. Lisa's mother, Susan, a woman who always looked at me as if I were a stain on her imported rug. A woman who thought my workshop was quaint, and my lifestyle simple. Simple meant poor in her language. I know how labor works, son. I was there when you were born, I said. I tried to keep my voice steady. I tried to ignore the cold dread spreading in my chest. The realization that I had made a terrible mistake driving down here. I'm here to support you both, I continued, pleading now, desperate. I won't get in the way. I just want to be here. I'm your father.
That's the thing, Dad.
Michael finally met my eyes. His gaze was distant, unfamiliar, cold. He looked like a stranger wearing my son's face. The boy I raised, the boy I loved more than life itself. He was gone. He took a deep breath. The words felt rehearsed, planned. The silence in the lobby was deafening. The gentle trickle of the fountain suddenly sounded like a roaring river. The world seemed to tilt. The lavender smell was making me sick. I have to be direct, he said. The words clipped, precise. Lisa doesn't want you here. I couldn't breathe. The pain tightened my chest like a vice. For a second the world went black. She doesn't want me here, I repeated. The words tasted like ash. Why? What did I do wrong? Michael looked down at his expensive shoes. He couldn't even look at me while he broke my heart. He was a coward. She feels pressured when you're here, he stammered. She thinks you judge her choices. He waved a hand vaguely around the opulent lobby, the marble, the velvet, the extravagance. Our lifestyle, he continued. She needs peace and quiet. She needs calm. Then he delivered the final blow, the word that shattered me completely. She said your presence is toxic right now. Toxic? Me? The man who drove 15 hours, the man who supported them, financially, emotionally, every step of the way. I just wanted my son to be happy. I just wanted to be part of his life. Toxic? My voice cracked. The word echoed in the silent lobby. She wants this moment to be just us, Michael said, his voice gaining a cold confidence. He was choosing his side, and it wasn't mine. Our new little family. Our new little family. The words implied I was the old family. Discarded, replaced, useless. Trash to be thrown away. I'm your family too, Michael, I said softly. I felt the tears stinging my eyes. I refused to let them fall. I know, Dad, but right now, I have to respect my wife's wishes, he said. his tone dismissive, cold, final. She's the one giving birth. This is her moment. He still wouldn't look at me. It's better if you just go, he said flatly. Please, don't make a scene. Don't make a scene. He was worried about appearances. Worried about embarrassing himself in front of the rich people. His real family. I looked at the man standing in front of me. He had Margaret's eyes. But the heart was gone, replaced by something cold and selfish. It hurt. It hurt more than losing Margaret, because this was a choice. A deliberate rejection. A calculated betrayal. But I wouldn't cause a scene. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. I took a deep breath. My hands were trembling. I walked over to the armchair he had just vacated. I placed the stuffed giraffe gently on the seat. It looked absurd sitting there. A child's toy in a palace of arrogance. Tell my grandson his grandfather wishes him a happy birthday, I said. My voice was barely a whisper. I turned around and walked out. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The drive back home felt infinitely longer than the drive there. The silence in the truck was deafening. The empty passenger seat where the giraffe had been was a constant reminder of the rejection. The void where my hopes had been. 15 hours driving towards joy, 15 hours driving back towards emptiness, towards the realization that I had lost my son. I didn't hear a word from Michael, no text announcing the birth, no picture, no name, nothing. I was erased, completely. But the worst was yet to come. Sarah, my daughter, called me as soon as I got home. I hadn't even taken my coat off. I just sat in my armchair, in the dark, staring at the wall. The house felt too big, too empty. Dad, did you make it? Is the baby here? Her voice was bright, excited. I told her what happened. The words came out slowly, painfully, each one a shard of glass in my throat. She was silent for a long time. I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard her crying, softly at first, then angry sobs. How could he do that to you, Dad? She cried. After everything you sacrificed for us, Lisa is a manipulative, greedy woman, she spat out, her voice shaking with rage. And Michael is too weak to stand up to her. He chose her over you. He's stressed, honey. I tried to rationalize. Still making excuses. Still trying to protect him. New fathers get overwhelmed. Well, stop making excuses for him, Dad, Sarah insisted. Her voice hardened. They use you. They take your money, and then they discard you when you're no longer convenient. Her words stung, because they were true. I had known it deep down. I had just refused to believe my son could be so cruel. I wasn't a father to them. I was an ATM, and the ATM was about to close permanently. 4 days passed. 4 days of agonizing silence. I went back to the workshop. I tried to lose myself in the familiar rhythm of the machines. The smell of machine oil and metal shavings. It didn't work. The silence from Michael was a constant hum of pain in the background. My foreman, Frank, noticed. Frank had been with me for 20 years. A quiet man, but observant. Loyal. Trouble at home, boss? He asked, handing me a coffee. I just nodded. I couldn't find the words. Frank didn't push. He just stood there, a silent support. On the 4th day, I was finalizing the invoices for the month, trying to balance the books, trying to figure out how to cover the latest loan I had given Michael. My phone rang, an unknown number, from the same area code where Michael lived. My heart leaped again. Maybe he was calling to apologize. Hello? I answered, my voice hopeful. Too hopeful. Is this Mr. Thomas Miller? A crisp, professional female voice asked. Cold, businesslike. Yes, this is Thomas. Mr. Miller, this is Mrs. Davis from the billing department at the Serenity Birth Center. My stomach tightened. This wasn't Michael. This wasn't an apology. This was something worse. Yes, I said, voice cautious. Sir, we are calling regarding the outstanding balance for the delivery and stay of Lisa and Michael Miller. Mrs. Davis continued. Her tone was brisk, impatient. Outstanding balance? I thought their insurance covered it. We are finalizing the charges, she said, ignoring my comment. And it appears there were significant complications during the delivery. My blood ran cold. Complications? What kind of complications? Mrs. Miller required emergency surgical intervention, she explained, as if reading from a script, and the baby has been in the neonatal intensive care unit, the NICU, since birth. Complications? I repeated, alarm surging through me. The baby? Lisa? Were they okay? I hadn't known. Michael never told me. He shut me out completely. He let me worry in silence while his child was fighting for his life. They are stable now, sir, Mrs. Davis said dismissively. Her lack of empathy was astounding, but the procedures were extensive and required specialists not covered by their minimal insurance plan. Minimal insurance plan. I remembered Michael complaining months ago. They had opted for a cheaper plan to save money. For a vacation to Italy, they prioritized a European trip over their baby's health. The selfishness was staggering. The total amount due, Mrs. Davis continued, her voice sharp, demanding. I heard the clicking of a keyboard. I waited, the silence, stretching. The air in my office felt thin. I knew the number was going to be bad. But I wasn't prepared for this. Is $130,700. How would you like to pay? I nearly dropped the phone. I stumbled back and sat down heavily in my office chair. The numbers swirled. The workshop blurred around me. The air left my lungs, my retirement. My legacy, gone. $140. $700, I whispered. That's impossible. That's insane. Yes, sir. The emergency surgery, the NICU stay, and of course the presidential birthing suite significantly increased the cost. The presidential suite. They stayed in the presidential suite. While the baby was in the NICU, they prioritized luxury even in a crisis. As you are the signed guarantor on the admission forms, Mrs. Davis said smoothly, triumphantly, like a predator cornering its prey, we need to know how you would like to settle this balance. We accept wire transfers, or we can set up a payment plan. The guarantor, the paperwork I had signed months ago. The formality, the insurance backup, the trap I walked into willingly. Blindly. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The realization hit me with the force of a freight train. They didn't just reject me. They planned this. They planned to exploit me. They banished me from the hospital, told me I wasn't welcome, told me my presence was toxic. But they still expected me to pay for their extravagance. They assumed I would just quietly cover their massive debt, just like I always had. The dutiful father, the silent checkbook, a gullible fool. I looked around my workshop, the business I had built from scratch, the retirement savings Margaret and I had built together, the money I needed to survive. Paying this bill would wipe me out. It would destroy everything I had worked for. And for what? For a son who treated me like garbage. The pain and sadness I had felt for the past 4 days suddenly evaporated, replaced by a cold, clear clarity, a righteous anger, a rage I hadn't felt in decades. A sense of freedom washed over me. The freedom that comes when you finally understand the game and decide to stop playing by their rules. I took a deep breath. A slow smile spread across my face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had finally found his resolve. The smile of a man who was done being a victim. Mrs. Davis, I said, my voice calm and steady. There seems to be a misunderstanding. I assure you, sir. The charges are accurate, she snapped. We have your signature on file. You are legally responsible. Do not try to evade your obligations. Then I suggest you transfer this debt to them immediately, I said, leaning back in my chair. The old leather creaked. I cannot do that, sir, she said, her voice rising in anger. You are the legally responsible party. The contract is binding. Oh, I don't think so. I chuckled softly. You see, Mrs. Davis, 4 days ago I drove 15 hours to be there for my grandson's birth. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. But when I arrived, my son stopped me at the door, I continued. He told me, and I quote, my wife said she doesn't want you around. He said it was time for their new little family. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. So, let me be very clear, I continued, the steel entering my voice. If I am not part of the family, then I am not responsible for the family's debts. If my presence is toxic, then my money is toxic too. I paused again for effect. Not my family, not my bill. I hung up the phone. My heart was pounding in my chest. Adrenaline surged through me, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The obligation, the guilt, the need to please a son who didn't respect me. It was gone, finally gone. I knew this was just the beginning. They wouldn't give up that easily. At your own 30,000. Was a lot of money. They would fight dirty. They would try to destroy me. I needed a plan. I needed an army. I called Sarah. Sarah, honey, I need you to come over. We are going to war. When Sarah arrived, I told her everything. The $140,700 bill. The presidential suite. The guarantor agreement. Her face turned pale, then flushed with anger. A fiery anger that mirrored my own. Dad, that's insane, she exploded. You can't pay that. That's half your life savings. That's not just greedy, Dad. That's cruel. I don't intend to, I said calmly. I was no longer afraid. I was focused, but I did sign the paperwork. I need a lawyer, a shark. That afternoon, we met with Robert. He handled my business contracts. He was a sharp man, meticulous, pragmatic. He wore expensive suits, but his eyes were intelligent and ruthless. I laid out the situation, the rejection, the bill, the contract, the betrayal. Robert reviewed the copy of the guarantor agreement. He frowned, adjusting his glasses. He read it multiple times. Thomas, this is pretty ironclad, he said grimly. He didn't sugarcoat things. You agreed to cover any costs, not covered by their insurance. And it seems their insurance is covering practically nothing. My heart sank. The hope that had flared up started to flicker. So I have to pay? I asked, the despair creeping back in. Even though they lied to me? Legally, they have a strong claim, Robert said, tapping the paper with his pen. Emotional betrayal doesn't void a contract, Thomas. The law is cold. It doesn't care about feelings. He paused. But it gives us context. Let's look at the itemized bill. We scrutinized the list. It was staggering. It was obscene. $50,000 for the presidential suite upgrade. $15,000 for a private chef and bespoke nutritional counseling. Thousands more for aromatherapy, labor support, and postnatal luxury pampering. The actual medical costs. The surgery. The NICU. They were buried under layers of extravagance. Layers of greed. While we were reviewing the bill, my phone buzzed. Sarah checked it and gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Dad, you have to see this. She showed me her phone. A post from Lisa on social media. A picture of her holding the baby, looking radiant, in a silk robe, in the opulent suite. The presidential suite I was expected to pay for. The caption read, "So blessed to welcome our little one. It's tough doing this alone, without family support, but we are strong. New family blessed." Alone but strong. The sheer audacity took my breath away. They were already spinning the narrative, painting themselves as the victims, manipulating everyone into believing I had abandoned them. I hadn't abandoned them. They had thrown me away, and now they were blaming me for it. I showed the post to Robert. They are lying, publicly. Let them, Robert said calmly, his eyes gleaming. It shows their character. It shows their arrogance. Arrogance makes mistakes. Save that screenshot. Save everything. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. A few days later, the peace was shattered. I heard a commotion in the workshop, a car screeching into the parking lot, angry footsteps. Michael. He burst into my workshop. He must have driven all night. He looked haggard, desperate. His expensive clothes were wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot. Dad, why are you doing this? He burst out, ignoring Frank and the other employees. They stared, shocked. I led him into my office. The confrontation was unavoidable. I shut the door. The silence in the small room was heavy, suffocating. Why am I doing what, Michael? I asked calmly. I sat down behind my desk. I needed the distance. I needed the barrier. The bill, he exploded. The birth center is threatening to call collections. They said you refused to pay. They are harassing us day and night. I just watched him. The desperation. The entitlement. He still thought he was the victim. It was pathetic. I didn't refuse to pay, I said evenly. I clarified the situation. The bill belongs to you and Lisa. You signed the agreement, Dad. He shouted, slamming his hand on my desk. The desk I built with my own hands. You promised? You gave me your word. I signed an agreement to support my family, I corrected him, my voice cold as ice. But you made it very clear that I am not your family anymore. You told me I was toxic. You can't have it both ways, Michael. His face crumpled. The anger evaporated, replaced by panic. Fear. Dad, please, he begged. Tears welled up in his eyes. Crocodile tears. We are ruined. This bill will destroy us. We can't afford it. We have nothing left. You couldn't afford the presidential suite either, I pointed out, my voice devoid of sympathy. But that didn't stop you from booking it. Then came the ultimate cowardice. He turned on his own wife. It was Lisa's idea, he stammered, throwing her under the bus. The fancy suite, everything. She insisted. She said she deserved it. I just went along with it. I didn't know it would cost this much. I swear, the weakness in his eyes was painful to witness. This was my son, the boy I taught to be strong. To take responsibility. He had learned nothing. You chose this lifestyle, Michael, I told him, my voice hardening. You chose to exclude me. You chose greed over family. I stood up. The conversation was over. Now you have to deal with the consequences of your choices. He left. Defeated, angry. That night, I cried. Not for the money. I cried for the son I had lost. I cried for Margaret, who would have been heartbroken. Robert called me the next day. He sounded energized, excited. Thomas, I think I found something, he said. The smoking gun. We met at his office. He had the guarantor agreement spread out on his desk. A specific clause highlighted in yellow. The fine print. The details that would save me. Look at this, he said, pointing to the clause. The agreement states that you are responsible for standard medical costs associated with the delivery. It defines standard based on the center's basic package and necessary medical interventions. And end? I asked, leaning closer. My heart pounding with anticipation. And the presidential suite, the private chef, the aromatherapy, none of that is standard, Robert said, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. It's all active. It's all luxury. But here's the crucial part, he continued, his excitement growing. We did some digging. They upgraded their package significantly after you signed this agreement, without your knowledge, without your consent. He showed me the dates. I signed in March. They upgraded to the presidential suite in July. You agreed to guarantee one thing, Robert explained. They purchased something else entirely. A luxury vacation disguised as a medical procedure. They breached the contract. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. A real hope this time. So I'm not responsible for the upgrades? Exactly, Robert said. You are only responsible for the cost of the basic package and the actual medical complications. About $25,000. $25,000. Manageable. Fair. Just. But Robert cautioned me. The birth center will fight this tooth and nail, he warned. They want their money. They will argue that the upgrades were necessary for the mother's well-being. That stress required luxury. The legal battle will be expensive, he continued. It might be easier to negotiate a settlement. Maybe offer $50,000 and walk away. I thought about Margaret. I thought about her integrity. No, I said firmly. I'm not negotiating. I choose to fight for what's right. The next few weeks were a blur of legal letters. Tense phone calls. The Serenity Birth Center was relentless. Mrs. Davis called me daily, her voice becoming increasingly aggressive, threatening. Mr. Miller, you cannot abandon your obligations, she hissed. If you do not pay, we will sue you. We will seize your assets, your business, your house. The threats were terrifying. I lost sleep. The fear was paralyzing. But I held my ground. Meanwhile, Michael and Lisa continued their smear campaign. Lisa and Susan spread rumors among my extended family that I was financially abusive, that I abandoned my newborn grandchild in the NICU. The lies sprayed wildfire. My Aunt Clara called me, her voice trembling. "Thomas, don't let money destroy your family," she pleaded. "Margaret would be ashamed. Just pay it and make peace." They didn't understand. This wasn't just about the money. It was about respect. It was about principle. The pressure mounted. The legal fees were adding up. I had to take a second mortgage on the house. Then the attack turned professional. They went after my livelihood. I received a call from Mr. Henderson, my biggest client. He accounted for 40% of my business. "Thomas, we have to pull our contract," he said, his voice cold. "We heard some disturbing rumors about your financial situation and your character. We can't risk working with someone unstable." I felt the blood drain from my face. They were trying to destroy me, to force me to pay. I looked around the workshop. Frank and the other employees looked worried. If I lost Henderson, I couldn't make payroll. I felt cornered, beaten. One evening, I was sitting in my living room. I found an old photo album. Pictures of Michael as a boy, laughing, hugging Margaret, his first bike, his graduation. The memories were painful. Where had that boy gone? I realized I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for the memory of the family we used to be, for the principles Margaret and I had tried to teach in integrity, responsibility, honesty. I knew I couldn't back down. Sometimes, love means letting them face the consequences of their actions. Finally, the day arrived. The mediation meeting, the showdown. We met at a neutral office building, a sterile conference room, a long mahogany table. The Serenity Birth Center's lawyers and management were there, polished, arrogant, smirking. Michael and Lisa were also present. Via video conference, alongside Susan, it was the first time I had seen them since the hospital. Lisa looked angry, defiant, holding the baby protectively. Michael looked exhausted, ashamed, broken. He couldn't meet my eyes. Susan glared at me through the screen, her face twisted with hatred. The birth center's lead lawyer started strong, aggressive, a shark in an expensive suit. "Miss Miller, you signed a legally binding contract," he stated, his voice booming. "We demand the full payment of $130,700, plus late fees and legal costs. The total is now close to $150,000. I looked at Michael and Lisa. They remained silent, cowards until the end. Robert calmly presented our case. He was brilliant, methodical. He highlighted the clause about standard medical costs. He presented the evidence of the upgrades made without my consent. The dates, the emails confirming the upgrade to the presidential suite. My client agreed to cover necessary medical expenses, Robert stated firmly. He did not agree to fund a luxury vacation. These upgrades were elective and authorized. The lawyer scoffed, dismissed. The presidential suite was necessary for the mother's comfort and recovery, he argued, smoothly. Stress can be detrimental. The upgrades were medically advised. Susan chimed in, her voice shrill. "Exactly. My daughter deserved the best. She almost died. This man is a monster. He abandoned them." Robert turned to the screen. His voice was smooth, but sharp as a razor. "If comfort and stress reduction were the priority," he countered, "then why did they reject the presence of the one person who was there to support them? The grandfather?" He paused. The question hung in the air. Heavy, uncomfortable. Why did they exclude Mr. Miller from the birth, telling him his presence was toxic? It seems their actions contradict their claim. Michael and Lisa remained silent. Lisa's face flushed with anger. Michael flinched. The mediation dragged on for hours. The birth center refused to budge. They threatened to take us to court. Finally, Mrs. Davis, the billing manager, spoke up. Her voice was sharp, impatient, arrogant. "Mr. Miller, enough of this nonsense," she snapped. "You are a successful businessman. You can afford this. Pay the bill and let's move on. Stop wasting our time." I took a deep breath. This was the moment I reclaimed my power. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but my voice was steady. "Mrs. Davis," I said, my voice resonating with a newfound strength, "it seems you still don't understand. This is not about whether I can afford it. This is about principle. This is about respect. The room went completely silent. I looked directly at Michael and Lisa on the screen. Finally, Michael met my gaze. His eyes were filled with fear, regret, shame. You made a choice, I said, my voice clear and steady. You chose to exclude me from your lives. You chose to treat me like a bank account, not a father. You chose to prioritize luxury over family. Tears welled up in Michael's eyes. He looked away again, unable to face the truth. Lisa glared at me, her face a mask of defiance. But I could see the fear behind her eyes, the realization that they had lost. I respected your choice. I continued. I walked away, but you cannot have it both ways. You cannot reject my presence and demand my money. You wanted a new family, I said, the words echoing in the silent room. Congratulations, you have one, and it comes with responsibilities. It comes with bills that belong to you. I turned to Robert. Robert, please inform them of our final offer. Robert cleared his throat. Mr. Miller is willing to pay the $25,000 for the standard medical costs and necessary interventions, as per the original agreement. Not a penny more. The birth center's lawyer exploded. That's unacceptable. That's insulting. We will sue you. We will drag you through court. We will win. Go ahead, I said calmly. I was done. I was no longer afraid. But be prepared for a public relations nightmare, I continued, looking directly at Mrs. Davis. We have the social media posts, the lies, the caption about doing it alone without family support, while sitting in a $50,000 suite. I paused, letting the threat sink in. We have the testimony about how I was turned away at the door after driving 15 hours. Be prepared for the story of how your facility enables financial exploitation and extorts grandparents. How your Serenity Birth Center is anything but serene. The room fell silent. The threat hung in the air. Heavy, suffocating. Mrs. Davis looked nervously at the lawyer. The color drained from her face. A public scandal would destroy their brand. It would destroy their business. After a long, tense silence, the lawyer muttered, "We will review your offer and get back to you." The meeting ended. I walked out of the room, exhausted, but victorious. I had stood up for myself. I had spoken my truth. I had won. A week later, Robert called me. His voice was cheerful. "Thomas, they accepted," he said. The Serenity Birth Center agreed to the $25,000 payment. He paused, and they transferred the remaining balance of $105,700 to Michael and Lisa Miller. They are now the legally responsible parties. The relief was immense. The weight that had been pressing down on me for weeks finally lifted. I could breathe again. I was free. The fallout was swift and brutal. Michael called me the next day, crying, sobbing hysterically. "Dad, what did you do?" he choked out. "The birth center is demanding immediate payment on $105,000. They're threatening to sue us, to garnish my wages, to destroy our credit. They had no way to pay it. Their lifestyle was a house of cards, and I had just pulled the foundation. The whole thing collapsed. Dad, what are we going to do?" he begged. "We are ruined. We will lose everything." "I don't know, Michael," I said softly. The sadness returned, the pain of seeing my son suffer, but it was a necessary pain, a pain that leads to growth. "But you have to figure it out," I continued. "You have to take responsibility for your choices. You have to grow up." But I hung up the phone. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't agonizing. It was peaceful. A few months later, I heard from Sarah. The financial strain had broken Michael and Lisa. The pressure, the debt, the reality, the illusion of their perfect life had shattered. Lisa, realizing the sophisticated life she craved was gone, had left Michael. She took the baby and moved back in with Susan. She wanted the luxury, not the struggle. Michael was devastated. He had to sell the expensive car, the fancy furniture. He moved into a small, cheap studio. He was working 2 jobs. Marketing during the day, bartending at night to pay off the massive debt. It broke my heart to see my son struggling, humiliated, alone, but I knew it was a necessary lesson. He had to learn that love is not transactional, Family is not disposable. Their respect is earned, not given. I focused on rebuilding my life. I reached out to Mr. Henderson and explained the truth. He apologized for believing the rumors and reinstated my contract. My business loosely recovered. One afternoon, I visited Margaret's grave. The cemetery was peaceful, quiet. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. I placed a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite, on her headstone. "Margaret, honey," I whispered, "I miss you. Our boy, he lost his way. He forgot who he was. He forgot what we taught him. I traced your name on the cold stone. But maybe," I continued, a glimmer of hope flickering in my heart, "just maybe he's starting to find his way back. He's learning the hard way." I sat there for a long time, thinking about the past year, the pain, the betrayal, the fight. It had changed me. I was stronger, wiser. I had learned the true meaning of family. It's not about obligation. It's about mutual respect, love, and presence. Sarah joined me at the cemetery. She linked her arm through mine, resting her head on my shoulder. We didn't say anything for a while, just stood there. "Together? Are you okay, Dad?" she asked softly. "I am, honey," I said, smiling. A genuine, peaceful smile. "I finally am." We stood there together, watching the sunset, just like Margaret used to love. I knew the road ahead would be long. My relationship with Michael might never be the same. I might never meet my grandson. That pain would always be there. A scar on my heart, but I had my dignity, my self-respect, and the love of my daughter, and that was enough. As we walked away, I realized I had not only protected my legacy, but also honored Margaret's memory. She would have wanted me to stand up for myself, to teach our son the value of integrity, even if it hurt. I had paid my dues, and I was finally free. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.